Okay, so what are the answers to these two questions? I've put these two questions up because they are popular questions, and there's lots and lots of books and systems out there trying to promise that they're going to give you the best way to advertise your book and give you loads and loads of sales, make you rich, or get you lots and lots of raving reviews, and they usually involve some sort of system. The only thing is with these systems, they tend to be a little bit short-lived. I've tried systems where myself, getting advertising the book and set rate for getting reviews and marketing it and so on. And yeah, some of them do give good results, and I've had good results from them. But the results are short-lived. They don't carry on going. So I've looked at other books and I thought, well, what is it that's made these top sellers not just be top sellers, but remain best sellers? Surely they're not running some sort of secret method or formula they've discovered somewhere, not telling anybody else about, and they're rerunning this formula over and over and over again to continue getting the sales over and over again to their book, right? Yeah, there's probably is other methods they're doing, but there's one thing which makes these books sell well and get raving reviews. Now, the answer to these two questions actually is the same answer. So the answer to the best way to advertise your book is the same as what's the best way to get raving reviews, and that is word of mouth. Word of mouth. Thinking about it, if you had someone come to you and tell you how great a product is, you're more likely to believe that and more likely to go and buy that product if you were looking for it, of course, than you would by just reading an advertisement or like a television ad or something like that, or a salesman trying to sell you the product, aren't you? Word of mouth, somebody phones you up or emails you or whatever, that's great advertising. You're more likely to take notice of that, especially when you know that person is not getting no financial advantage at all from you buying it based on their recommendation. You're more likely to believe them. You believe it to be honest and genuine. And reviews are essentially the same thing. Reviews are word of mouth. So what we're going to be talking about in this course will give you both of these things. It is the best way to advertise your book because it's how the top books, the top books, not just bestsellers in a sub-rank somewhere, the big time selling books. It's they actually have the advantage of word of mouth, which is the best way to advertise your book, and reviews is word of mouth. And you will get raving reviews because you will be getting that word of mouth. It's just another way of people telling somebody else by word of mouth. So let's have a look at some top books. So this here is a book called Mindset, written by Carol Dweck. This is the paperback version, though as you can see it comes in many other versions as well. Now the first thing you'll notice about this book is it's got 1,295 customer reviews. That's 1,295 people who have decided that it was worth their time writing a written review. Now, any author will know, if they spent any time on this, that it's only a small fraction of the actual people who read your book that will actually write a review. My opinion is that they will tell a lot more people by email or word of mouth just by meeting them on the street. I've done that myself. There's some great books I've read, and I've met up with someone talking about different things, and I've told them about the great book I've read, and they've more than likely gone on to buy it themselves. That's the best form of advertising. Let's have a look to see how well this book is doing. So I'm just going to scroll down to where it gives you the statistics and figures. As you can see here, it's number 227 in books. Now, number 1 in books will be the top seller of all books. So number 227, that is very high, considering there are millions of books, all individually ranked with a sales number, just like this one. But this is showing that there's only 226 books out of those millions of books out there that are outselling this book at this moment. Of course, this rank will change all the time. This book is doing exceptionally well, and it's from word of mouth. Let's have another look. Let's have a look at another one. I've got these open, ready to look at. So, The Gifts of Imperfection, by, I think you pronounce that as Brain or Brenny Brown. Okay, the author of this book. Once again, take notice of the amount of people who've taken the time to write a written review and advertise this book by word of mouth. 2,458. That is a lot of reviews. Now let's go down and take a look how well this book is doing. This one is number 162 in all books on Amazon. That means 161 books are selling at this current moment better than this book. But that's out of millions of books. That is selling a lot of books every single day. So take another look at another one. Now this book is a great book. I've read this book and I've read it several times and I've recommended it. And I believe several people I've recommended to have gone on to buy the book. Brilliant book if you're interested in anything that's like psychology and persuasion, by Robert Cialdini's doctor, PhD in psychology. And I've actually personally emailed the author actually shortly after I first read his book, and he actually personally emailed me back twice and gave me some useful information and links. Robert Cialdini. Once again, take a note of the number of views, 1,044 reviews. Again, an awful lot of reviews. Let's have a look, see what this sales rank is. Okay, 1,102. So it's higher than the other first two books we just looked at. But you've got to remember, there are millions of books. This is selling a lot of books every single day. I mean, a lot of books. It really is. And this has been out for quite a long time. It shows here it was originally published on here. It's 2006. That's the revised edition. You know, I think I bought my copy before that. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, if you haven't heard of this book, well, now's the time. It's one of the books I actually first read when I was in school. It's by Dale Carnegie. It's actually originally written in 1937. I know this version here has got October 98, but of course it's a revised one, or updated one. The book first was published in 1937, way before the internet. It was only advertised through an advert in a local press, or a press, whatever advert. And it was so popular for 10 clear years. It outsold every single book, apart from the Bible, that is. Now that is something, isn't it? And it is still selling well today, very well today. I'll show you why in a minute. Once again, look at the reviews in this. Now bearing in mind, this book has not been, this is the revised edition, 1998, being published here on Amazon. That's when it's put on Amazon. And in that time, it's had 3,980 reviews. So since 1937, how many reviews has it really had? Wow, a lot. Let's go down. Check this out. Number 125. Not bad for a book that was originally written way back in 1937. So, we've looked at 4 books here. Mindset, Gifts from Perfection, Influence, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I could go on. There are many, many top-selling books, or selling a lot of books every single day on Amazon. And they will continue to do so. Why is it? Well, yes, as I've mentioned in my other course, there are certain things which will give you top sales in your book. The title of your book, subtitle of the book, the cover, the contents, the sales description, what tells you about the book. Those things will sell it, and they will get you sales, and will get you a lot of sales. However, people have got to first see it, and what better way to get people to see it than to advertise it? And what we decided the best way of advertising is word of mouth. So what is it that would make lots of people blab about a great book to somebody else? Well, it's got great content, we know that, but there's also something else, and that is what we're going to be discussing in this course. And also I'm going to be showing you some great ways and insights of how you can easily produce your books to include what I would call the golden nugget. So what is this golden nugget? What is this special thing that makes these books top bestsellers? Well, I'm now in my Kindle and I'm looking at a book written by Dale Carnegie called The Quick and Easy Way to Effective Speaking. Now remember, his book How to Win Friends and Influence People was one of the books we looked at earlier. It's a huge success. So let's hear it from the man himself. I've gone to a particular section in this book which I've highlighted. So let me read this to you. The rules from How to Win Friends and Influence People can be listed on 1.5 pages. The other 230 pages of the book are filled with stories and illustrations to point up how others have used these rules with wholesome effect. So, what is the golden nugget? It is this: stories, illustrations, anecdotes and things like that, yes, as well, but mainly stories. So Dale Carnegie is actually saying here that if you just put it all down on a sheet of paper, 1.5 pages, it'd be a very short book. And if he'd done that, yeah, we would have still got those facts, but we wouldn't have probably took action on them, and I doubt very much his book would have become very successful at all. What's made this book valuable is the stories, and that's what the secret of the success of this book is. So why stories? Well, what would you rather read? A textbook full of facts, a little bit like those 1.5 sheets, but just facts after facts after facts, or a collection of stories? For me, stories, and I think that I can speak for the majority of people, certainly anyway, that stories is the one. When you look at the top best-selling books on Amazon, I mean the top echelon of books, I think you'll find very few, if any, textbooks there. The books, certainly I'm talking about non-fiction here, not fiction. The top books there, you will find, I would say, in every single one, with perhaps an exception, they are full of stories. Okay, stories that convey all the principles and methods and everything else in that book. Okay. I'm back now at the book which I found very, very good, called The Psychology of Influence of Persuasion, or should I say, Influence the Psychology of Persuasion, sorry. Now this book, as we noticed earlier, was a very, very successful book, and the reason why is this book also is full of stories, examples, and so on. It's just littered with them, and that's what makes this book so great, because again, I could have just written it down on one page or whatever, all the stuff that I learned from this book, but it's how it's taught, because the stories demonstrate it and make it memorable, and it shows you how these things work in real life and everything else, and it's what makes this book great. So why do they work so well? Well, they get you to remember. We remember stories a lot more, because I remember a story when I was a child, and it used to, at the end of every day, and I was in the infant school, it was time for the story time, and we used to sit around the teacher on the floor, and I still remember the smell of the classroom, the sun shining through the big windows, and the teacher sat there reading the story. And the particular one I always remember was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. And I remember to this day, now as a grown adult, the pictures I conjured up in my mind when I was listening to this story, and I can still remember, the smell of the clothes in the wardrobe, the colour of the white snow, and the witch, what she looked like, and she came along on her sleigh. This was in my mind, before the films. So, and I still remember that now. But also stories that I've heard help me remember principles, and I remember those stories a lot more than just the facts. If I just heard the facts, it's very likely I struggle to remember those facts, but the stories help me remember and understand those facts more. You see, the power of stories, that we see ourselves experiencing them. It's like we're actually in the experience. When I'm not actually really experiencing it, but it's pretty much the same thing, because in our mind we imagine ourselves in it. So like when I was a child listening to that story and I was sitting on the floor, it was like I was actually there. I was actually going in the wardrobe, and I was walking through the snow, and it's like we're really there. And that's the beauty of how this is a great teaching tool. Great teaching tool. It can do all sorts of things. It can do everything for you. You only have your words, you see, in a book, and the best way to demonstrate is by showing and giving people a picture. And because you've only got your words, it's going to be very difficult unless you put a picture in a book. But even then, it's not going to be as good as moving pictures. Stories it gets them to see the picture in their mind, and it makes them live it out, live in the experience. And it's like they're experiencing it themselves, and that experience is what teaches them. It's how we learn it. Let's face it, when we learn things through life through experience is a great teacher. So now we know what they are. I'm going to now move on to showing you how to put these in your own book. Now, when I say stories are what makes a book great, I don't just mean a book with any old story in it, a bunch of stories just thrown together to make a book. That wouldn't really do it. There's a reason for the stories, and we're going to look at what those things are and what these stories do, and how we can come up with the stories and how we can actually write them in our books. And that's what the rest of this course is about. And this is what's going to make every book you write shine and make people rave about it and talk about it, either to people or through email or face to face, or even just by writing reviews on your book. Before we move on, you need to know this. Okay, you can use a story for everything, and I mean everything, in your book. Stories can do all sorts of things. You no doubt want to do the same things in your book. Now, you can choose to just write it a bit like a factual book, like a textbook style thing. That's fine. I've done that. And yeah, you can be successful and people will gain knowledge and things from your book. Or you can make your book brilliant, like the top echelon best-selling books are, by doing the same thing, teaching those same facts, but doing it in a way that they will remember them, and they will have a stronger impact on your reader, and they will gain so much more from your book when you use stories instead of just listing facts. You can use stories to do, I've mainly narrowed it down to these 5 things. Now, there may be other things as well, but these are the main 5 for me. You can use your stories to teach things. They're brilliant teaching tools. When I was at school, I was taught about the Vikings, and this was through a story. And if this had been just from the textbook normally we were taught out of, it wouldn't have had so much impact on me. But because it was a story, it was so much better, and I remember it now. And I remembered all sorts of different things that I learned about the Vikings from this story. You can use it to demonstrate things. Give examples. Instead of just you making an example up, have a story demonstrating these things to your readers. You can also warn them. So there'll be places in your book you'll be wanting to warn people against taking certain steps or doing certain things, and you want to warn them. You can use stories to do that. Instead of just saying to avoid this, you can use a story. Stories. You can persuade people. Now, that's a great one. Stories are one of the best ways there is out there to persuade people. Okay, you can build trust. When I say build trust in you. You want your readers to trust you. And a great time to do that, of course, is right at the start of your book, in the introduction, or even in your book description. You can use a story there, and it's one of the best ways to build trust. There's, of course, certain ways that you should do this, and how you can create the story to do these 5 different things. And these are the things I'll be talking about one by one in the next lectures. So now we're going to start talking about the different things that you can use your stories for in your books. Now, okay, you can't use your stories for everything in your book, but most things you can. So you can teach, demonstrate, warn, persuade, and build trust. Those are the things that I'm going to be covering here with examples to show you what you can do. So let's start with the first one, that's teach. So we're teaching things, let's think of some examples. So for example, say your book was about programming. Now, I'm not an expert on computer programming, but if imagine your book, then it was the big introduction. So you were trying to teach the reader the concept of programming, what it's for and what it actually does. So for me, you could use a story like an analogy. So I could use a story about me and my ex. Now, I go down and see my daughter who lives with my ex-partner, and she's often finds things on the internet where people locally are giving away clothes or selling clothes or toys and things, and so she wants me to take her along in the car to the person's house to pick it up. And before we go, I say, well, you sure you know where it is? Oh, yes, definitely know where it is. Are you sure you know where it is? Yeah, really do know. Right, okay, then I'll direct you. Yeah, don't worry. So off we go in the car. And of course, 9 times out of 10, we get there and we end up going down wrong streets, having to do U-turns, coming back up again, going along, finding another street. That would be the wrong one, going around another one. And sometimes it got really bad, basically we were lost. And I got to the point one time I was almost saying, well, it's this pointless, I'm just going to have to turn the car around, I'm just going to have to go home. We eventually did find the place. So what I did is I decided to invest in a sat-nav. Wasn't exactly this one here, but one of course like it. And with the sat-nav it was great. Now, although it's not perfect, it's not exactly great, but usually it will get you there. So it'll tell you when you're coming up to a junction, turn left, and when to turn right, when to go straight ahead or left, right, or whatever at a roundabout, and eventually would get you to your destination pretty well. So this would be my story to demonstrate the concept of programming, because then I'll go on in the book to explain, well, a bit like a computer, your programming is directions for the computer to follow. So you would at certain points put instructions for the computer to do certain tasks, different things that you want it to do, and then after that you'd put the next instruction for it to do something else, and so on, to give you the desired result, to get the computer to go where you want it to go, or to do what you want it to do. So that would be my story, to sort of use that. If your book was about psychology, actually I did read there's a good book on psychology, I've told you about this before, Cialdini, and he's teaching the concept in his book, or the idea about how we evaluate certain items with the price as being high price, it's being expensive. So the story he gives is along those lines, that there was a shop that was selling a particular gemstone. Now these gemstones, a particular gemstone, I can't exactly remember which one it was, but it's a sort of semi-precious stone, a little bit like perhaps one of these here. And so what she decided to do was, they weren't selling, so what she decided to do was lower the price. Essentially she made it cheaper, hoping that she was going to get these gemstones finally sold. Anyway, they didn't sell, so she made it cheaper still, and still they didn't sell, and she continued making it cheaper. Still no luck. So she was on the point of desperation. So what she did was, she practically thought, well, I may as well just sell them at a loss. So she was going on vacation, so she marked the price really low and left the instructions for the sales assistant to mark them down really, really low. And when she came back, all the gemstones, to her surprise, were sold. So she was quite happy. So she said to the sales assistant, well done for reducing the price. She said, oh no, I thought your instructions meant double the price, or times the price by 3 or something like that. So what she'd done is she'd increased the price to something quite a lot more expensive. Now, when she was amazed to think, well, hang on, they weren't selling when I was reducing the price, so why should they sell now and put the price up? So she actually contacted the psychologist and asked him what he thought, and he said, well, when they see the big price tag, they associate that, especially with something like gemstones, where most people aren't experts, they can't tell value by looking at them. They associate that it's going to be quality gemstones with a big price tag, and if it's got a cheap price, then they're going to assume that these gemstones are cheap, low value. And this is why they didn't want low value gemstones. People actually wanted nice expensive ones. So when the price was increased, this showed them as more perceived value, and thereby this is what sold the gemstones. So as you can see, that story is a brilliant way, and also entertaining way, of demonstrating the psychological principle that we do evaluate usually things of more value when they have a big price tag associated with them. Now, you can use this for most things. You could even have a book, say you could be teaching someone like biology. You can use a story in that. So imagine you were trying to teach a subject about the human digestive system, how the food comes down here into the stomach and through the intestines and so on, and goes around the body and sort of thing, breaks down and eventually comes out of your body and so on. You could do that, just give it as facts, like a textbook, or you could use a story. It's much more entertaining and much more memorable. So you could talk, of course, this wouldn't be a real story, so that's something that actually happened to someone, experiences, but you can make it into a story, the story of the journey that the food took. So it could be like, a story, you can make it up as you go along, a little bit entertaining. So you say the food went into this big mouth and it was all chomped around by these big white teeth, and the juices all kept coming around and making it all soft and squishy, and eventually it just slid down this long slippery lane which went on forever and ever and ever, and then suddenly went into this big stomach, and in this stomach it all got very, very burny. And as you can see, this could be, I just made it up at the top of my head, as you probably guessed, but that's how you could do a story to demonstrate something that could otherwise be quite boring and factual and dry. So as you can see, use your stories. Look through your book and look for things that need to be taught. Instead of just saying this is what you do, I mean, say that as well, that's fine, but also use stories. And like I said earlier in a previous lecture, you use, I would say, at least 2 stories, but no more than 3. Because that way it makes sure that you're going to get everybody's attention. So that's really mainly about teaching. Pretty much though, your book is teaching, and even all the other ones that we're going to go through next, they're also teaching with just different types of stories that you can use to do different things. So now we're going to move on to the next one, which is demonstrate. Okay, so when we demonstrate something, what we're essentially doing is we're showing how to do something. So the first thing that jumps into my mind, which stories are brilliant at demonstrating, are processes, step-by-step processes. Essentially, you're taking someone through the steps that they need to follow. So an easy way, very, very easy way to do this is essentially just tell a story about when you followed the process. You went through the steps, this is what happened, what you did next, and so on and such forth. Tell them what happened, the results, or the mistakes you made, or whatever it is, and they will see a real life example of the process in action. So stories are really good at demonstrating processes, and it's really simple to come up with a story because all you simply do is tell them about a time that you followed the process. So it doesn't even need to be the whole process, it could be one step from the process. But apart from processes, it could be a story demonstrating a tip. Again, you're showing them how to, this tip that you've told them about could be about how to get scratches off the car, so you can tell them a story about that. Again, it's just telling them a story about when you used it. Or it could be a technique, a method, or whatever it is. It could be just one thing. Demonstrate them, show what you're teaching them in action. Tell them about a time you did it. Now, it doesn't actually need to be just you. I mean, you are the first thing that is easiest because you've got the experiences in your head about when you do it. But you could even use what somebody else did. So, just give them a story about what somebody else did when they used your method, tip, or whatever it is, or process. So, again, look through your book and look for things where you can demonstrate them. So instead of just saying, all right, you do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, or do this great tip, you do this, and or you do this particular action, and this will give you this action. Tell them then a couple of stories, or up to 3 stories, showing them about times that you or someone else has actually done this.